reawaken to your immortal identity and discover life between life's wisdom. Presented by the Michael Newton Institute. Hi there. Hi, Indrani. How are you?
Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm super excited, as always, for today. So why don't you just share the topic we're gonna explore today?
So, I'm going to call it S square. The two terms or two words that we hear so often these days. We've heard them individually, we've also heard them discussed and written about together. And both of us, being spiritual hypnotherapists, spiritual regression therapists, we have dealt a lot of times in both spirituality with sustainability. What's the connection? We are about to explore with someone very special who's joining us today the connection, the bond, or the relationship between sustainability and spirituality. And without further ado, Rebecca, please introduce our guest who's there for our session today.
As always, it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest. And this time we have Sonya Santolin. I think that's how I pronounce it. And she is a corporate lawyer from Ontario, Canada, with international professional experience in financial service and corporate law. And she's originally from Canada, and she's been lucky enough to experience life professionally and personally in France, Switzerland, the British Virgin Islands, and the United Arab Emirates. She's a child of immigrants' parents from Italy, and she repeated her parents' experiences living as an outsider in foreign lands, learning new rules and cultures, struggling with language barriers, living and working closely with different cultures, norms, and levels of well being. Her expat experience also allowed her to work closely with senior management to introduce best practices and address corporate shortfalls in environmental and social issues. So Sonia has designed several win-win programs to educate staff and the community on financial literacy, health and well-being, and other important issues as well. And since her return to Canada in 2019, she's joined two not-for-profit boards, Firefighters Without Borders, and let me see if I can say this correctly. I'm Norwegian, remember? So, Club d'Investissement Responsable du Québec, I think, as director, board secretary, and head of corporate governance, and is also a member of the ethics and investment group where an environmental, social, and governance lens is applied to investment activities. And on a more personal level, Sonia has been committed to self-healing and spiritual practices and has worked closely with you, Indrani, with her best to create and resonate with her best self, and has often befriended others and used these tools to help them heal. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Sonya Santolin. Welcome to the Life Between Life Wisdom podcast.
Hi everyone. Thank you for the invite today. Pleasure to join you both. And Drani, special hello.
So happy to see you here, Sonia, and I'm sending extra special sunshine and love from your beloved UAE.
Yes, I certainly miss that place.
Yeah, but then now you're seeing me, so you're going to miss it a little less. Just
Yes, that's true.
because I'm going to just send out a lot of UAE vibes for you today, especially.
Thank you.
Sonia, can I address you just for a moment before I'll let Indrani ask you all these wonderful questions that she has up her sleeve? When I read your intro or your bio, I was like, wow, you've experienced a lot of, different aspects of sustainability. You've traveled to different countries, you lived it, you breathe it, you've been in the environment of it. And if you've seen where things are lacking or not, maybe not lacking, but that needs change. And just from a personal point of view, if you could give me one thing that really resonated with you traveling all over the world, living in these different places, and thinking about sustainability from your perspective, not like from an official definition, but how do you experience sustainability in these places?
Well, I think every place has its own specialness. And I really think that that is, for me, the takeaway. So I know many people when I lived in the UAE thought, well, how can you live in a desert country? But the nature and the beauty of the place is unique to that region, similarly as it is in Canada with the forests and the rivers, as it is in the British Virgin Islands with the winds and the water. Every place has its special uh, place within Mother Earth. You know, they all bring a special jewel. They're all a special jewel uh, to make this world what it is.
Thank
Do
you.
you want me to expand on that?
Yes, please. I'm more actually, can I have a following question for you? I just was thinking when you were speaking about Mother Nature. I mean, we're on this beautiful planet. We all have our journeys. And be it from a life between life perspective, I've had some clients that have been experiencing life on other planets to achieve resources to come to Earth in this period of time to actually use their soul's resources. I'm actually one of those people that discovered that in a life between life session. So I'm very focused on Mother Earth and how sustainability is for me. That's also why I asked you that question. But as you're speaking of Mother Earth, which is all our mother, how do you find that people from all these countries that you've stayed at um, come together in that understanding? Or is it lack of information? Are we on different vibrations? Or what's your experience of that?
Well, I can't speak to it from a vibrations or past lives perspective because that's not my area. But I see it as levels of maybe soul journeys or levels of maturity. Everyone brings their own, uh, everyone's born with a particular slate or a particular mandate. And often it's very large and sometimes it's very narrow. And so, even in human interactions, you will find some people who are very conscientious and sensitive
Mm.
of other people, and others who are very inward and or maybe selfish. So there's a broad variety, similar to what I think of biodiversity with animals. You may look at a spider and want to kill it, but it serves a purpose in the bigger ecosystem. And so every person, every plant, every animal, whether you judge it positively or negatively, has a role to play. And I think that there's that equilibrium. And that's kind of how I see my experiences. I've been able to, come with my perspective, which is often, I'm from a first world country. And so I've gone into third world countries and second world countries. And I see it from my lens, but I've also learned to see life from the other person's lens. So
Mm. Oh, I
it's
think that's so important. I'm so grateful you just said that. I think that's maybe my experience as well, traveling the world, is learning to accept or see it from different perspectives to get the full picture of who and the oneness, if you wish, how we can actually come together and create a new earth. I like to look at it that we're going to take care of Mother Earth and bring her into a new era, if you wish. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to give it to you, Indrani, and I'm going to take care of the back end. So I'm going to look forward to hearing your conversations.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was Truly a wonderful way to start. And Sonia, big hello once again. So happy to have you here with us. Truly.
Thank you, Andrani. Great to be here. Great to
I know.
see you.
Me too. So, Sonia, when we talk about sustainability, the word that keeps flashing in my space is balance, balance. Because somewhere in the world that we're in today, with all that we are exploring, even in the realm of spiritual experiences and everything that one is onto, we are seeking for balance. And when you were talking about, the different experiences you've had in different parts of the world, and when you're trying to understand how sustainability is seen or experienced or any initiative that's done, from your understanding as a spiritual being, what would your identification, if I may use that word, of core principles be? Core principles of sustainability.
Yes, I think one of them you've mentioned correctly is balance, balance and harmony, making ecosystems be in respect with one another, so that there isn't an oversupply or an over demand, no abuse, that things are working properly. So I like to think of it in terms of the circle of life. And, you have the life, death cycle, and it rejuvenates and feeds itself. And so, similarly, different systems within the planet work the same way. And so, a whale will eat plankton, will then produce whatever, and it feeds itself. And when you take one of those elements out, you have disharmony, and therefore you pose and create problems for sustenance, for continued survival. So I think that's one of the first principles. I would say one of the second ones is awe and wonder, and really respecting and appreciating small details, really living in the moment. So for this, I think of a recent trip I did where I went whale watching in Quebec.
Yes.
And I remembered sitting on the Saguenay River and seeing the whale humps coming up and going down, and just being so blessed that I was part of this natural phenomena, and that I was at such close presence with these majestic creatures who are seriously at threat. But that's another story. I think a third principle is love. And I think of it in terms of tolerance. So being able to respect one another. And I think that respect, to me, sustainability really ultimately boils down to the word respect, respect for self and respect for others. And that's where the harmony comes in, is when you have both happening. And I think the last element for me is creativity, because I think when you have experienced all of those elements, you're in a position to create and to innovate and to see things with joy and wonder. So those would be the principles that I would say really underpin sustainability for me.
So, Sonia, when you were speaking about creativity, love, respect, balance, there's an element of very deep spiritual unpeeling, exploration, if I may say so. So, to me, as a spiritual regression therapist, and having guided so many clients through different experiences of their incarnations on Earth and other planets and other dimensions, we hear these words very often in our sessions. It's as if that's the search, that's what the soul's looking for. So, the bridge or the connection or that symbiotic relationship between spirituality and sustainability, I was seeing that answer while you were even sharing what you were sharing. Would you have anything more that you would want to add to that? from your perspective?
Again, I think that, back to my original observations about living internationally, I
Hmm.
think that we're all on a journey to, every soul on earth is on a journey, whether it's in human form, animal form, on a journey to find their place in that balance, harmony, respect, creativity,
Hmm.
wonder, appreciation of life journey. And I think that, again, everyone has a different level of maturity. And I certainly know working with you that, where I was when I started and where I've gotten to now, I'm a different person. I have different perspectives. I have grown in many ways. I've shed off a lot of, um, I've healed. I still have many wounds to go, but I'm transforming. And I think that that really is the spiritual angle, is that transformation with a goal to getting towards that harmony where we are at peace with ourselves and the world around us.
That's so beautiful what you just said, Sonia, because it brings me to, I can refer to a few sessions as a LBL and spiritual regression therapist, that in journeying into your inner space, in journeying into other experiences that one has had as a soul, the more and more one sees their existence on planet Earth and it starts to recognize the relationship with other beings, with other souls, not just human. It makes you develop a certain compassion, it makes you develop a certain sensitivity, which gives rise to a certain love, a certain respect, a certain honor, which then makes you see Mother Earth differently
Mhm.
and in your daily life. So even in that plant which is there in my backyard, when I go have a quick word with it and say, I'm so happy you've got a few more buds, that means tomorrow you're going to bloom. You know, that sheer joy in the moment, you're connecting to Mother Earth then and there. Or when you see that little butterfly and you stop whatever you are doing, and for just a few moments, your world, everything's with you, just paused and you appreciate that being, its beauty, or
Yeah.
its carefree nature. You imbibe something from that soul, you learn something from that being. And to
That is
me,
so
when someone
true.
says, yeah,
That is so true, Indrani. I have a money plant in my one of my rooms, and I think I was overwatering it. I didn't know how to care for it properly, and the leaves started to turn yellow. So I took it outside and I replanted it. And I left it outside thinking it needed direct sunshine. I remembered reading somewhere it needed direct sunshine. And I almost killed it. And I then, did some more research and I found that actually they need indirect light. So I brought it back inside. I watered it less and all the leaves fell off. And I found myself, saying, I'm so sorry. Please, please come back to life. I just felt so responsible for this plant. Well, all the leaves have now shed and there are new buds growing. And I'm just so grateful every time I see a new bud. I just think, the resilience of that plant reflects our resilience too.
yes.
We, again, that life, death, life circle. And, there are aspects of us that die off and others that are reborn, similar to the plant. And when I see the plant, it reminds me of how perhaps a difficult moment is just a passage in time and things will shift in due course and work toward, and become something else. Again, that transformation of life, similar to my little money plant.
See, this is so beautiful what you shared, because there's a very powerful message that's going out to all of us in what you said. Because in today's day and age, and the kind of world we're living in today, transformation is required at our thought level, at our heart space, in the way we act, because only then would we be able to sustain our existence. Because there's a lot that's happening in the world that we're in today, and not all of it is very positive. There's a lot of heavy, toxic stuff floating around. But for us to transform that and to allow light to come into it, or allowing life to come into it, we need to transform. And that's where, I think sustainability also then brings me to the understanding that, Sonia, you've lived in so many different countries, you've worked with so many different people in different initiatives on sustainability. How much have you seen a spiritual shift in the mindset at a micro level or at a macro level? Because I know you've worked with so many different organizations.
I think that on a micro level, even on a macro level, I find that the initiatives that I've been party to um, have been greatly appreciated. I think that the approach that I always take is one of, I mean, I'm working for an organization or I'm representing a body, but I'm creating initiatives for the community or for individuals. And so I like to think of it as win-win. And so I'm looking for what is going to benefit the organization and how can I make that a positive solution to address a need, because that's the whole point of the initiative, is to um, convert a problematic area into a positive impact.
Mm.
And certainly the programs that I've been involved in, I've received, one-on-one feedback in a very positive way, thankful for the solutions or the programs that I have created or been part of creating. And also at a bigger level, because from a corporate perspective or from an organizational perspective, it's also moved the needle in a favorable way, whether it's addressing a real societal need, whether it's a reputational benefit, whether it impacts the bottom line. So it's the initiatives around sustainability, although mine have been in particular areas only, are really geared towards solving problems that we have created, whether it's through you know excessive hunting, excessive clearing of lands, plastic waste, whatever it is. We've just not been very respectful of Mother Nature, and I think that's where that self-respect and other respect becomes really important. And so, what I love about sustainability is that it brings in a lot of different elements. So, all the aspects of the ecosystem, you analyze the problem and you try and find solutions that are actually going to restore the well-being and health of the various parts of the ecosystem.
I'm so glad you shared this, Sonia, because it takes me to 2020. This is when lockdown started all over. We were all getting kind of overwhelmed, because 2020 has been very overwhelming with the pandemic and the impact of it globally. But I recall very clearly what it enabled people to do was to dive inwards. And there was this shift that I recall very clearly. We were having global sessions where we would have webinars, global meditations where virtually people were connecting. Sonia, you remember, I think you had joined some of these sessions which we were doing during that time. And one of the key tasks, if I may say so, that globally a lot of colleagues had taken on were that let's expand the heart space and connect with the heart space of Mother Nature. Because if Mother Earth heals, we will heal. And we need to tap in, we need to create or recreate, if I may say, or realign that relationship, that bond, which had become very, it had worn thin, if I can say that. Because, as you said, there's been a lot of disrespect and dishonoring that had happened and continued to happen probably for decades. But from the world that well, I would say, I would choose to use the term I represent. There is a awakening. There is an awareness that's flowing. People are more conscious, and I think the new generation, the generations that are coming, there's a compassion in them, a sensitivity or a kindness in them that I think we need to nurture. Then spirituality and sustainability, the S square that I was talking about, that bonding will enable Mother Earth to truly heal and once again flourish. It will let humanity flourish too. That's, I think, all of us are wanting it, all of us are needing it, and there's so much that's being amplified, and I'm hoping and praying universe is listening, that that's what we want for Mother Earth. Because sustainability, when we talk about the initiatives that are happening, if the initiatives were fed and charged with that kind of a spiritual fervor, passion from the hearts of everyone, then we will see magic happen, then we will see miracles happen. So
I'm just
Rebecca,
happy. I'm just loving every word you're saying, Indrane. It's filling my body with just so much love. And I'm feeling that we're celebrating Mother Earth today.
yes,
I really, truly
yes.
feel that. And I just, my heart
And
is
I want to share a
overflowing with
small,
love.
I want to share a very small story here, if I may. uh, the whole experience of connecting to Mother Earth, and I think each of us have our individual journey. But the moment Sonia shared that one picture that her son took of that whale, it literally flashed in my space all that you do, Sonia. All the years of initiatives and activities that you've probably spearheaded across the world in the world of sustainability. That is why it was so important to have you here with us in today's session. So, if I were to ask you that, can you gift us any one or two initiatives that you feel individually we all in our own humble way can uh, do or sustain or start, maybe in our neighborhoods, in our locality, in our homes, amongst our own, so that viewers, and they start doing that, that's how we'll create a ripple effect, and Mother Earth's going to rejoice. So any few ideas, one idea, two ideas that you would like to share with us, that you would like us to take forward, please share.
So I think of my space in order to answer your question, and I think that um, I moved to Montreal in 2019, and I bought a house, and I've been renovating and fixing it up, and trying to make it um, beautiful, because that's what's important. That's an important value of mine, is beauty. I like to be surrounded by beauty, by light, by greenery, by design. That's just who I am. And I I feel that, and everyone's different, so not everyone's going to have the same focus area. But I think if you can start looking at your space, and making it resonate with your values, and really making it bring joy. I think that's probably the best way, in whatever way it is. So for me, it's become gardening, and so I built a little stone wall. I've redesigned my front yard, my a planting area, to receive great compliments from the landscaper down the street. And for me, that's really, it's starting to have that connection with nature. That for me has been one area. And I think that whatever it is for an individual, it's really about making their space one where they feel alive, where they feel whole, where they feel creative, and are able to come from a place of joy and love in life. Um, I think that would probably be my takeaway or my tip.
My heart is full. Thank you.
Mine too. Bubbling with joy.
I know. Can't thank you enough, Sonia, truly. Because
My
I think
pleasure.
in everything we forget simplicity. And what you've just done is you've shared something which is so profound, so powerful, and yet it's actually so simple, something so doable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't thank you enough.
Great. Thanks for.
Thank
Are
you.
we at the coming towards the end of our session? Is yeah,
So thank you,
wonderful.
Sonia, for being here with us. I truly enjoyed our your conversation. I was mostly listening, but it's a gift. It's actually a gift to be able to listen to people who share their authentic self and to share their love for Mother Nature and Mother Earth. It's just it uplifts me, and I hope that everyone watching really can take it into consideration and really feel the energy of our conversation today, and just to allow it to just unfold within themselves and just be inspired. So thank you. You're inspired me, Sonia, so thank you so much. And I'll make sure that everyone who wants to get in contact with you, I'll have your contact information in the episode description. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thanks both. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you, thank you, Sonia. Take care. Keep shining brightly and keep doing what you do.
Bye bye.
Likewise. Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks.